every now and then God has to let the devil reach back and snap us back into realization that you are nothing without God. You can do nothing without God, and without God we are nothing, have nothing, and will be nothing. And every now and then he goes on to say in verse 27, again, lest I should be exalted above measure. Well, watch verse number 8. Watch verse number 8. I told you, the first thing that thorns do is thorns prevent what? Pride. Here's the second thing. Thorns prompt persistent prayer. I said thorns prompt persistent prayer. Watch verse number 8. Can I take my time with this? He says, for this thing I besought, I prayed, I cried out to the Lord thrice, that is 3 times, that it might depart from me. Now, nothing better than thorns, problems, issues, burdens, bills, sicknesses, good times will prompt you to pray on another level. Some of us would pray right now if it wasn't for our thorn. In fact, for some of you, your thorn is what brought you to church this morning. Paul prays on another level. Watch this. Paul prays specifically. He says, for this thing. Not for God to fix cutlery fish, but for this thing. Not for God to straighten the preacher and the deacons out, but for this thing specifically. And then Paul prayed consistently. He said, I besought the Lord 3 times. And I want to tell you that your prayers ought to be specific. They ought to be consistent, and your thorns ought to prompt you to persistently pray. Now somebody says, why keep going back to God for the same thing? Who else you going to? I mean, after all, he's the one that made you, knows all about you, that knows how many hairs are on your head, whether they were grown in or sown in. He knows all about you. He says, I'm going back to him again. I want to tell somebody, I want to encourage you today, don't stop going back to him. Maybe you prayed for a job and it hadn't happened yet, but don't stop persistently praying. Maybe you've been praying for your family to get better. Don't stop praying. Keep on persistently praying. Maybe you've been praying for the Lord to touch your body, to restore peace back to your mind. Don't let the thorns stop you from praying. Watch verse 9a. Verse 9a, and he said unto me, now that's enough to shout about. Right there, I got a problem. I prayed about it, and he responded. That's been enough to shout about it. Regardless of what he said, thank you, Lord, for answering. Thank you for responding. Now, the Lord has 3 answers to prayer. Yes, no, and wait. And he said unto me, well, what did he say, Paul? Verse 9a, my grace, hallelujah, is sufficient for thee. For my strength is made perfect in weakness. He says, my grace. Here's the third thing. Number 1, thorns prevent pride. 2, thorns prompt persistent prayer. You can preach this later on. This is pretty good. Here's the third thing. Thorns point to providential power. I said thorns point you to providential power. Look what he said. My grace is sufficient. What is grace? Unearned favor. Unmerited. You can't buy it. Your American Express points can't purchase grace. Leave it at home. Grace is an unearned, unmerited gift of God. What is God saying? God is saying that when your life is flawed, you can depend on favor. See, God's power is different than our power. Paul wanted him to take the thorn out so he can operate on his own power. But when you really discover the power of God, you find power that is providential. What does that mean? That not only does it work for you, it'll work for your neighbor. The providential power of God is discovered when your life is flawed. God's power. Remember David went up against that giant by the name of Goliath. But what did he go out there with? Nothing but God's power, a rock and a rag. And he took the rock, put it in the rag, and swung it around, and hit Goliath square in the forehead. He didn't do that on his own power. He did that on God's providential power. Moses was standing at the Red Sea. Nothing but an old stick in his hand. God said, stretch it out. And when Moses stuck out his old stick that he had in his hand, the Israelites were able to walk across on dry ground. What did he have? Nothing but a stick and a word from God. A stick and a promise from God. The power of God operating in his life found providential power. Ludwig van Beethoven, 1800th century poet, the composer, wrote, conducted, and wrote the most beautiful music, totally deaf. How does a deaf man play the piano and compose beautiful symphonic music? I'll tell you how. The power of God. And I don't know about you, but I thank God for the power of God. I have found out that if you operate on God's power, you'll discover where your real strength is. Have I got a witness in here? Now Paul prayed, but God said no. But let me tell you, even in no, there's a blessing. Because thorns point you to providential power. Because when God says no, he's saying in essence, right now, I need you to stay weak in that area. Why? Because people need to see a broken vessel. So they can understand that I don't use perfect people. I perfect people as I use them. I need you to stay weak right now. I need you to have this issue right now. I need you to keep this thorn for a while so I can use you as a display of my power so that when people look at you, they will know it's not your good looks, your good education, your good standing that's holding you together, but it's the grace of God that's keeping that broken vessel together. I wish I had some folk in this house that can say, thank you for my brokenness. Thank you for my thorn. Thank you for my sickness. Thank you for my problem, because I discovered it's you that's holding me together. So when God says no, you all can thank you. Because what he's doing is that he's going to use your transparency to transform. And it might cause you some discomfort in your life. Maybe even a little embarrassment every now and then. But God says, I'm going to use you in spite of for my glory. And then when you feel like you cannot make it on your own, all you can tell folk is the glue of grace. Some of you about to crack right now. And about to go down for the last time right now. But God said to tell you he's holding you together. And what looks like brokenness on the outside is him holding you on the inside. Somebody just say, he's holding me together. That's what he meant when he said, my grace